What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a pop-up modal happen, like an automated modal that pops up after a certain amount of time. So I'm sure you've all seen these before. They're really popular, and it's usually to get you to sign up to like an email. It's a website asking for your email, and they're either trying to offer you something, or they're trying to get you up. Maybe if it's like a blog website or something like that, they're trying to get you to sign up for their newsletter, and they'll have a pop-up that appears after 3, 4, 5 seconds, whatever, saying, hey, join us, or give us your email and we'll send you this offer, something like that. So I'm going to show you how to do that from scratch with just vanilla JavaScript. It's really not that hard at all. And just to show you what we're going to build here, it's not super pretty. I just want to let you guys get the concept down with the JavaScript. But we got like a little Air Jordan landing page here, a really crappy looking one, but nonetheless, it's a little landing page for our product. And I'm going to refresh the page so that our little modal happens. So after 2 seconds, boom. We get that little pop-up modal. Exclusive deal, buy 1 pair of Jordans, get 1 free. Enter your email to claim this amazing deal. Okay, so that little thing pops up. Now, the user can choose to just X out of it with the X up here, and it'll close it, and then they can continue on the page like nothing happened. Or, and it won't pop up again after that. Or, we'll refresh it, start the sequence over again. If the user wants, they can put an email in here. If they try to submit something that's not a real email, we got a little bit of form validation in there with HTML. I'll say, hey, this doesn't look like an email, add a real email. So let's say they add a real email and hit submit. They'll get this little message will appear. Again, we'll do that with JavaScript. Thank you. Please check your email to confirm offer. Okay. And then at that point, the user can click out, and that's how it would work, at least on the front end. Of course, if this was like a real full-fledged, like full-stack website or application, you'd have back-end code that validated that email as well, and then actually sent the email out to the user. But this is just the front end of this. Nonetheless, this is a really important skill to learn, guys, because I don't know if you've noticed, but if you've ever tried to build like a WordPress website or a Shopify website or any kind of like popular content system, there's plugins for that to make pop-ups happen. As you can see here, I found the popular one's called WP Pop-Up Maker, and all this company does is allow people that don't know how to code that much make pop-ups. But if we click get started here, and you'll see how simple this is when we build it, it's really not that difficult. We click on get started, and look how much money people are charging for this simple little service through a plugin. I mean, people are making millions of dollars basically off of making pop-ups. So look at that, guys. Crazy, right? Pay as you grow. So $2.99, $1.99, $99. So for one website, $100 a year. Imagine if you had 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 users paying you $100 a year to make pop-ups on one website, right? Crazy. So these skills that I'm teaching you, they're really basic, but if you actually look into it, a lot of these really simple skills are being used by people all around the world to make millions of dollars. It's crazy. But just thought I'd point that out to you there. With this skill alone, you could start something like this and just make a killing online if you get some users. So let's get out of that. Let's close this down. I'm going to go ahead and start a new folder for this project. And we'll just call it JS Pop-Up Modal. And we'll go ahead and open up our Visual Studio Code. And we'll drag this project in there. All right, so let's go ahead and make our files for this here. We're going to make an index.html. Going to make a style.css. And we'll make an index.js JavaScript file. And then I'm also going to make a separate folder called image. We'll just say img, and we're going to put the image of our Air Jordan in there, and I'm going to grab that from my folder, put it in here. All right, let's go ahead and make some boilerplate code. If you want to just view the JavaScript, guys, go ahead and fast forward, because otherwise we're going to build out that little simple design from everything from scratch, okay? And I recommend that you do watch that if you're new, if you're a newer developer. Get in the habit of doing all 3 things, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together. Don't just try to jump into JavaScript without knowing how to do HTML and CSS, because that will cause you major headaches down the line because they're all intertwined, okay? So let's just call our page Retro Air Jordan 1s, something like that. I think that's what those are called anyway. I'm not really a big shoe guy. This is just the first example I thought of. I know there's a lot of shoe people out there that probably watching this like, what the hell? But that's okay. We're gonna make our style. We're gonna link our style sheet with the. We're gonna do a link tag. Put our style.css in there. Connect our JavaScript. We'll say source index.js. And then let's go ahead and launch this sucker. Let's go live so that we can see what we're building in real time. There we go. Is our web page, Retro Air Jordans. And let's do a little CSS. I'm going to put asterisk to select everything on the page. We're going to do a CSS reset. So we're going to say margin 0, padding 0, box sizing border box. And for the font family, I'm going to do Arial because it's the prettiest font. Let's make sure that our styles are there. So let's do an H1 and let's say Retro Air Jordan 1s. Okay, so there's our font is working, our padding and margin 0, so our style sheet's working. Let's make sure our CSS is, or our JavaScript is connected. So let's do an alert and just say hello world. And JavaScript is working. There's our alert. So good to go there. It's always good to make sure your stuff is connected before you keep building. And I'm going to go ahead and make a div with the ID of content and wrap all of my main content in that. So we'll put it's going to go within there, within our H1. Okay. And then after our H1, we're going to put our image in. So let's say image, and we're going to give this a class of shoe image. And then we're going to go into our images folder by hitting ./image, Air Jordan image. There it is. For our alt text, we'll put Air Jordan 1. And that should be all we have to do for that. Below our image, let's go paragraph tag. And we'll just do lorem 32, some placeholder text. So we'll pretend like that's some kind of like product description or something. And that's going to be it for like our main content. So that's what it looks like. We're not going to style it yet. We're going to do our modal and then we'll style everything. So let's make our pop-up modal. So let's do, down here we'll do a div. We'll give it an ID of pop-up modal. And then let's go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is make the X to close everything. So I'll say, we'll do an ID, and we'll say, we'll make it close pop-up modal. And then we're just going to make a capital X in there. So that'll be the X that'll eventually be in our modal, and it'll be what the user clicks to X out of it. Okay. Let's do the rest of it. So we'll put an H2 here and we'll say exclusive deal. So something to catch the user's eyes, like, ooh, what's that? I don't think I just put exclusive, right? There we go. That looks better. And then below that, we'll do a paragraph with a class of modal P. And then we'll say buy one pair of Jordans, get one free in all caps. And then we're going to do another, copy this paragraph down with the same class of modal P. We'll delete that, and then we'll say enter your email to claim this amazing offer. Okay. And then below that, we're going to have a little form. So we'll say form, and we'll give it an ID of pop-up form. So we'll say pop-up form. And we're not going to have any form action for now. Just going to leave that blank or get rid of it. All right, and then within our little form here, we're going to have an input, and it's going to have an ID of email input. And for the type, it's going to be email. And then we'll put some placeholder text in here. And we'll just make it say your email at domain.com. Okay. And then we'll put required on here. So the user has to fill it out if they want to select the offer. Just a little bit of form validation. And then underneath our input, we're going to put a P tag with the class of success message. MSG for message. And this is what's going to appear if they successfully put an actual email in there. And we're going to say thank you. And then we'll say please check your email to confirm offer. So in other words, we need to make sure that you got the offer and that you're a real person, and we'll send it to you. And then below that, we're going to have an input type of submit, and it'll have an ID of submit BTN. So we'll say ID submit BTN. Okay, and there we go. So that's all the HTML that we need here. So let's style this up. So it's not going to look super pretty, guys, but it'll look a lot better than it does now. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to do some styles on my body. I'm going to say body. And we're going to give it a height of 2,000 pixels just to give it some height, because I'm going to position the modal to where it stays in the middle of the page even if the user scrolls. And we want to make sure that functionality is working. So now we got 2,000 pixel height, so we got a little scroll bar here. Okay. And then we're going to do a class of dark BG, and this is a class that we're going to add to the body with JavaScript. That's going to make everything go dark behind our modal like it usually does when you see modals on screen. So I'll demonstrate that here for you. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to copy and paste this little code snippet that I use for this because I don't have it memorized. And you'll find yourself doing this a lot as you become more advanced as a developer. But it's just like a linear gradient code with some RGBAs for black. And then I have 0.9, which basically means make it pretty dark but a little bit see-through. And just to show you, if we go to our body and we put the class dark BG on here, that's what it'll look like eventually. It'll be dark everywhere. So take that out for now. Again, we'll add that later, but with JavaScript. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and style this part up now that we got those little classes out of the way. Let's start with the H1 that says Retro Air Jordan 1s. And we'll say text align center. And we'll say margin top 2 rem. And we'll make it 3. There you go, bring it down a little bit more. And then let's go P, let's style our paragraph tags. And we're going to give them a width of 70%. And then we'll say margin 1 rem top and bottom, auto left and right. That'll center it, okay? And then let's grab our shoe image with the class that we put on it, which is shoe img. And we're going to say display block. And then we're going to give it a width because it's a little too big right now. I'll say width 300 pixels. That's better. And then let's put it in the middle and give it some margin around it. So we'll say margin top and bottom 2 rem. 1 rem, guys, is equal to 16 pixels. So that's about 32 pixels of top and bottom margin. And then we'll use auto here, and it'll center it. Okay, so we're starting to look a little more like the finished product. And now we're going to go ahead and get started. That's all the stuff for our main content up here. Now let's style up this modal. So let's select our pop-up modal. And I'm going to say everything text align center on that. So that centers everything. Remember, we're working down here now. Say text align center. Let's give it a border so that we clearly see where it is. So we'll say border We want it to be 2 pixels, solid black. And then let's give this modal a width of 400 pixels. We don't want it to be super big. Let's give it some padding around the top and bottom of 2 rem and then 0 rem on the sides, just to make it padding, make everything have a little bit more room to breathe. Let's do position. I want this to be fixed so that even when the user scrolls, they can't get away from it no matter what. So that's the first part of doing that. We also want to do left 50%, top 50%. That'll move it a little bit, and then now we're going to move it dead. So that's halfway. This is just a way of moving things dead center. You go left, top 50%, and then you use transform, and then translate, and then you can do minus 50%, comma, minus 50%. Boom. And that's kind of like an old school trick of doing it, but it works. That's like some old school CSS that's more prevalent back then. There's other ways to do it now, but that's just the way I do it. Let's make sure our modal has a background color of white so that it goes over everything. And then let's give it a Z index of 2 to make sure it's always on top of all content. And now we got to get, so that's looking better. I mean, again, this is going to be kind of ugly because this isn't like a big HTML and CSS project, but as long as you get the concepts, that's all that matters. And I'm not going to spend 2 hours making this look really pretty. That wouldn't make sense for me or for you. But let's go down and let's make our X needs to go in the corner, like a normal X out button. So let's go ahead and select it. I don't remember what the ID was for that. It's right here, close pop-up modal. So let's copy that over. Okay, and let's say position, absolute, top, 10 pixels, right, 10 pixels, and we want it to have a cursor pointer when the user goes to it. So there's our little close thing. So guys, it's that simple to make close buttons. A lot of people I see, they go to like Font Awesome or they go to some website where they get like little clip art or whatever that has like an X thing just to grab an X, and then they like they paste code in here. They have to call an API every time they run a web page just to get a simple X. If it's something simple, just try to make it yourself with HTML and CSS and skip all that. Just my advice. Anyway, moving on. Let's style up our H2 here. Actually, H2 is fine. Let's do our modal P. Let's say modal. So our paragraph's in the modal. Remember, we give them a separate class. And we'll say margin 5 pixel auto. Okay. And then let's say H2 padding bottom. Let's just do 10 pixels. That looks better. And then let's select our email input and style that up a little bit. So let's say hashtag, where is it? Right here. Email input. And we'll give it a height of 30 pixels, a width of 225 pixels, and then a margin top of 10 pixels. And we'll give it, see how our placeholder text and our text is sucked up here, like right to the corner when we type or when we look at the text. Let's give that some padding. Let's say padding left 5 pixels. And that just moves it over a little bit. That looks better. And then let's go down to our submit button and style that up a little bit. So actually, no, that looks good. We'll just keep it like that. I don't want to add any like crazy styles to the submit button. I'm happy with that. We'll leave that as is. Doesn't really matter. Let's style up our success message here. So let's say dot and grab that class for success message. And this shit is only going to be showing after they submit the form, but we'll fix that in a second with JavaScript. So I'll say success message. I just want the color of that to be green because green means go, green means success. And then let's go ahead and we'll make a class that we can add onto things, and we can add and take away with JavaScript, and we'll just call that class display none. So let's just say dot display none, and then display none. So anything that has this class on it by default will not display on the page until we want it to. And you might guess that we're actually going to put that on our pop-up modal right now. So let's say class, class display none. Okay, so by default we don't want our modal showing, so that's good. We should also add that to the success message for the modal, because we don't want that showing unless somebody has successfully submitted a real email address. Okay, so let's just add that here, and that should get rid of that. Let's make sure by getting rid of this code just for a second, saving. Yeah, so our success message is gone. On our submit buttons to the side. So let's actually style that up to make sure that doesn't happen. We'll just make that sure that displays block. So let's say grab that, say hashtag submit button, display block, margin 1 rem, auto on the sides. That should center it. There. Okay. Good to go. So let's put our class back over here. The pop-up modal class, display none. Cool. All right, guys. So got our HTML and CSS. Our modal's all set to go. We just got to add a little bit of JavaScript, and we will get this thing finished. So let's go over to our JavaScript, and the first thing we'll do is select all of the DOM elements that we need so that we can manipulate them. So I'm just going to make a comment here and say make a note that all my DOM elements are here. My caps lock will work like it's supposed to. All right, so there we go. So first thing we'll select is the body itself. So let's say const body equals document dot, we'll use query selector here just so we can select the body without having to put an ID on it. And now we're going to select the content here. So let's say const. Remember, we wrap that in a div with a ID of content. So we'll say const content equals document dot get element by ID. And the ID is content. And then let's select the pop-up modal. So we'll just copy this down, so we don't have to type everything out again. We'll say const pop-up modal, and it's going to be equal to pop-up modal EID. Okay, and then we need to get the X to close the pop-up modal. So copy this down, and we'll say close pop-up modal, and that's going to be equal to our little X here with the ID of close pop-up modal. Okay, and then let's select the pop-up form itself. So copy this down, and we'll say pop-up form, and let's go grab that ID right here, paste that in, and then the last thing we're going to need is our success message. So let's copy that down, that, and we'll say const success message. And let's grab that here. We made that a class, so that's going to be query selector instead of get element by ID. So let's say query selector, and we'll put our dot selector success message. Okay, So that should be everything that we need as far as DOM elements are concerned. We can right click and inspect and go to the console to make sure we're not getting any error messages, and we're not, so we're good to go. So the first thing that I'm going to grab is going to be, well, first we'll set a function that we need that's actually going to pop up that modal after 2 or 3 seconds. We'll probably do like 3 seconds. So we'll set a function with that, and to do that, it's just like making a regular JavaScript function, except you add something called the set timeout method, and that's what makes everything go in a timed manner automatic. So to do that, we're going to do set timeout. So set timeout, parentheses, and then within your parentheses is just where you write all of your function stuff like normal. So let's say function, and we'll call this function open modal. So we'll say open modal, and then parentheses, and our curly braces. And then within here, what we want to do is we want to add that dark background to the body. So let's do that first. So let's say body dot class list dot add, and we'll say dark BG. Okay, so there's dark BG. And then what we want to do is we want the pop-up modal to display. So we need to remove the class that's stopping it from displaying, that display none class. So let's do that with JavaScript. So we'll say pop-up modal dot class list dot remove, and we want to remove the display none class. So that should show the modal, and it did. Perfect. And now we want to set the timer, so that goes in between the curly brace and the parentheses, of how long that's going to take, and it goes in milliseconds, guys. So 1,000 milliseconds is equal to, got to put a comma here, sorry, comma, then how many seconds? 1,000 milliseconds, as you can see, that fired off right away, is equal to 1 second. So if you want it to be like 3 seconds, you would put 3,000 milliseconds, save, 3, 2, 1, boom. Okay, so now we have that set on a timer of 3 seconds. You can play around with that and do what you want, but basically, guys, that little set timeout thing, that little method there, is what you need to add to your functions. You basically just wrap it in that method, set your milliseconds, and that's how it works. It's really as simple as that. Okay, so we're not done yet. We have to do a function to close the modal, because right now our little close button doesn't close it, so we need the user to be able to get that out of the way. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to make a comment up here and say these are where all my functions are. And then I'll go ahead and make another comment, and we'll say these are going to be my event listeners. Okay. So let's add an event listener to our close pop-up modal, to where when we click it, it actually makes this thing disappear and get out of the way. So let's say close, close pop-up modal dot add event listener, and we're going to say on click, we want you to run a function called close modal. Okay, and then we'll go down here and we'll make that function. Say function close modal. All right, and then what we want to do when we close the modal is we want to remove this dark background, and we want to add the class list back onto our modal of display none. Okay, so basically, let's just copy these and just fix them a little bit. So we want to say class list dot remove dark BG, and instead of remove here, we just want to put add. It's really that simple. So let's do that. And now let's see if our X works. And it does. So it's closed. It's not coming back. So that's all working well. The only other issue that we're going to have now is if we refresh and we let our modal pop up again. Let's say that a user enters their email in and submits. They can submit, but then it's going to restart the process and fire the modal again. And we want to avoid that because if the user's already done that, we don't want them to keep getting this message because they're going to get irritated and then you're going to probably lose a sale. They're going to leave your web page because they're going to think this thing sucks, right? We don't want that. So to do that, we're going to go down and we're going to grab our pop-up form, the actual form within our modal, our code down here. And we're going to add that little form validation and success message. And then that way the user, once they get their little success message and they realize that they've submitted their correct email, they can just exit out on their own. And that way it won't keep showing up again and again. So let's go to our event listeners and we'll say pop-up form. So the form itself dot add event listener. And this time the event that we're going to listen for is a submit event. And that happens in forms when you click the submit button. So be careful, guys, because if you try to do that with forms, if you try to add an event listener and you try to do it on a button click, it's not going to work that way. You have to put your event listener on the form itself and then use the submit event to manipulate forms, okay? Just remember that because that was hard for me to grasp when I was new, and I know a lot of people still mess that up. But anyway, so we'll make our function, we'll make a function called submit form. And then we'll go down here, we'll say function submit form. And then put up our curly braces. I'm going to put event in here, and we're going to use the event dot prevent default so that our form doesn't just submit right away and it doesn't restart the cycle of the pop-up modal. So we got to put prevent default in there, and that's just using the event parameter. You can look this up, guys. Just type in event parameter in Google, and there's a bunch of documentation on what this is if you want to take a deeper dive into it. But all you really have to understand is for forms, you got to put this so that your forms don't submit the default way, and that you can display messages and show the user other things if they have a good email. Okay, you have to put prevent default on there. And now what we want to do is we want to display the success message. So just to show you a different way, we've been adding and removing classes to make stuff appear. But what you can also do is you can just do straight up like CSS with JavaScript. So just to show you a different way, we'll say success message dot style dot display. Whoops, the computed style map came up. Dot style dot, okay, came up again. Dot display. Sometimes this auto code really messes you up, so you got to pay attention to that. Okay, so we'll say dot style dot display block. So that's just another way, instead of like removing the class from it that says display none, you can just do a little CSS with JavaScript. Same thing, I just want to show you guys a different way to do stuff. We could literally use this same methods up here instead of adding and removing classless if we wanted to. It's just, it's preference really. So let's see if this works. See if we put a real email in here and hit submit, we should get our success message. And we did. Yay, please check your email. Cool. And then we can X out of here. And hopefully our modal won't show up again. And it didn't. So there we go. Now our user, they submitted their email, they'll get it. They won't be in that continuous loop of a modal. And we'll just check one more time to make sure there's no other bugs going on. So if we try to submit this without an email, won't let you. Cool. If we X out, make sure our modal doesn't show up again, and we're good to go. So that's how you do a timed automated pop-up modal, guys. And remember, we position it absolute and we put it fixed so that our user can't get away from it too. So that's another good feature to use. But anyway, that's how you make a pop-up modal, guys. You just basically use the set timeout method, wrap it in whatever function you're doing, and then put your milliseconds for when you want it to appear. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I appreciate everybody that's been subscribing. This channel is kind of shocked me. I kind of just made this as like a side hobby to see what would happen, and I'm actually getting a pretty decent amount of views and subscribers. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, guys, and I will see you in the next video.